Hello, everybody. It is almost 2 o'clock, so let's go ahead and start. Welcome to yet another episode of Unhindered by Coding, where I write programs and you watch and help because I get stuck a lot. And so today, this afternoon, we're going to work on some systems class related lab stuff. Now, this won't actually be specifically building a lab yet. This is sort of working through some existing lab ideas, but doing them in Rust instead of Java, which is what we've been doing in the past for this. And then I'll be thinking then about what does that mean? What does that tell me? And do I want to rewrite some of these labs to be in Rust instead of in Java or C or whatever the language lab is currently in? So this is going to be picking up where we left off last Saturday afternoon, looking at a Echo client server project. And I'll mention, so have a Discord. This QR code will take you to the invite link to the Discord. That's also visible down here in the bottom left. So if you're interested, absolutely feel free to join. And that way I can do announcements and ask for feedback. And discuss things there. So let's get out of this and get to code from last week. So this is the server, for example. The server, and this is the threaded version of the server. We last week started building a non-threaded version, switched to using a threaded version using the Tokio crate, and the Tokio crate actually has TCP listeners and streams, asynchronous versions of those built in, and so we switched from I think in the net crate we had been using stuff, and we switched to using Tokio's versions of these things. So we bind to an address at some port, and we wait. And that gives us a listener, which is listening at that port at localhost. And then we loop infinitely and we await a client trying to talk to us. So listener.accept is we're going to wait for somebody to connect. And when that happens, we will get back a pair. So accept returns a TCP stream and a socket address. And we don't need the address of the client. All we care about is the socket itself, the TCP stream. Oh, hello, esitsu. Wonderful to see you again. And then once we receive a connection, so again, in the pre-threaded version, we blocked at this point and then processed the input from the client. Now with threading, we do Tokio spawn, and that's going to create a new thread to handle the streaming input. So we provide this closure, which calls echo stream on the socket, and we generate this unhelpful message. The error handling is a mess, and that's actually what I want to focus on today, and possibly using the error stack library as a way of dealing with the error handling here. An echo stream, and the other thing is I really probably need to have some sort of logging. Right now I've got just some print lines floating around, and that really ought to be converted into some proper logging. So error handling and logging are the two main things I want to think about. today, starting with error handling and maybe getting to logging later. So we create a buffer of 128 bytes, and then we loop infinitely, read into that buffer. If we get nothing, if we get 0 bytes, so socket.read returns how many bytes were read. If we get no bytes, then we're done. So the socket's been closed. And so we say we're done and we return okay. And otherwise, and because of the return, I don't have an else here. I could do this with an else. But otherwise, we write all of the contents. Oh, actually, that's a little, yeah. So we writes all of the contents of the buffer that's provided. We don't want the whole buffer because the buffer is 128 bytes. We might have only read 10. And so we need to use the 0.num read bytes here to say what part of the slice of this array do we actually need to write back to the client. So that should write back to the client, and then we go back up and read again. So that works great, and the client is pretty similar. We'll come to that later. So the problem is the error handling. So right now there are, let's see, there's this expect, which is kind of gross. So there's a question mark here. There's a question mark here. There's an expect, which really kind of wanted to be a question mark, but it was inside this future, so it couldn't be. So there's 3 error handling issues here. And then down in echo stream, there's a question mark and another question mark and this logging stuff. So I'm going to start down here in echo stream and see if I can spiffy things up so that we don't have the question marks anymore. Because that would be the goal, essentially, would be to try to get rid of the yeah, I mean, really the goal would be in some ways to get rid of the question marks. So right now, if we have an error, for example, let's see, I think I can force an error. If we go into echo server, and if I say cargo run, and now if this is in the same directory, and if I say cargo run, yeah, so we get this, and that's coming from this bind right here. So this bind fails, the question mark propagates the result error out here, so our main returns that result, the error type, and we get this rather unhelpful. I mean, this isn't terrible, actually, but it'd be nice if it indicated what the address was, certainly what the port number is, because that's an important part of what often happens with these kinds of problems is that somebody's using that port, usually because you've actually got another instance of the server running. So let's see if we can make these question marks tell us something a little more useful. So I was thinking of starting with the innermost function, which is echo stream. Now, these could fail because we failed to read or we failed to write. So let's think about this. Does it say something? This function encounters any form of IO or other error. An error variant will be returned. If an error is returned, it must be guaranteed that No bytes were read. So yeah. So I think, and then similarly, I assume write all probably. Oh, right. Write all repeatedly calls write until there is no more data to be written. And I assume write will have the same thing, that it'll return an error, whatever IO error happens to occur there. So the idea with, let's see, what do I want? I want you, right? Yeah. So the idea with error stack is that you use it to create what they call reports, which are really just error types with some additional goodies, and you can attach things to reports. So there's two important things as I understand it, and I've never actually written any code with error stack. So we're all about to fall into a hole together here. But my understanding is, well, there are two key pieces. One is this notion of context, and you can attach or change context at any point in a process. And this lets you take an error and say what you know about it in this setting. Because one of the things that happens is errors propagate up from sort of the initial source to a calling function, to a function that called that, and etc. You know more or less, but often you know more as you go up the tree. And if you could capture that context, that would be useful. And then attachments are ways of adding information as well to the context. So attachments are typically typically strings, although they don't have to be. And then contexts are things that are typically errors, essentially. And they often have a display trait, which is some sort of information, print some sort of information about what's going on. And then you can impl error or context for those things, and that allows you to change the context. And then you get nice output is the goal. So you get, when something happens, you get some hopefully useful feedback. So let's actually start. I was going to start down here, but thinking about it, because we know how to force this one to happen. And these I don't expect would be likely to occur, to be honest with you. I suspect the operating system makes it very likely that either of these would happen in real life. If you, like, maybe if we put a big sleep here between reading and writing, if you killed the client before you wrote back, that read would fail. So we could probably force that to happen in some fashion. I don't know immediately how to force a read to fail, because if the socket's closed, you're just going to get 0 as the number of bytes. And so I don't immediately know how you would make that read fail, but I think we might be able to force the write to fail. And so error anyhow, or some of its variants, or other things that I thought about. I mean, there are a lot of error handling systems, and to be honest with you, if I was going to do this in a lab, I don't know that I would want to go to the trouble of having students figure out how to use a crate like error stack, but I felt like it was I liked so I watched the Let's Get Rusty video on error handling from early July, I think, and he was using error stack, and I really quite liked that. Actually, I can share, because I actually have that video up if anybody cares. I think I found that to be a very useful video, and I liked that. And I've seen people do anyhow and some other things, but I thought this would be something. It's a little more complicated, but I like the kind of results that it generates, and I like the idea of attaching information to reports. I felt that metaphor made a lot of sense to me. So I was going to try it here. And yeah, maybe it's a bad idea. I don't know. We shall see. And actually, I want to, before we get into changing things in a meaningful way, I want to make a branch here. So try error stack. Because I want to make sure that I've got things working. I don't want to merge into main if everything goes all to heck in a handbasket. And I have added error stack. That I did that just before the video started. So let's actually try doing something with this bind, because we know how to make that error happen, so we can see if we like the kind of information that it provides. So what would we do? So I'm going to actually do and now we're going to get rid of the question mark, and we're going to say report, and that's going to turn this into a report, but we have to say what kind of error this might be. And so really what we want here is a connection error. So we're going to want to make some kind of connection error type. So if we come back here and we steal basically this stuff, then we're going to want to return a connection error as an option. I have to think about what we're going to want to do with that. We'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to leave that buffer size up there. We'll put this here. Boom. So I'm going to want like connection error, or actually bind error maybe. And then display for bind. So couldn't bind to the given address, and and then I think in the attachment we'll be able to say what it is we want, what the address was, and other information. Now here I've got a slight issue because I've got two question marks, and this one's still doing an IO error. And so I actually have a enum. I'm going to need to have some sort of enum. Derive debug enum server error, and we're going to have a bind error, or we're going to have an IO error. I feel like there'll probably need to be some other information attached to those guys, but we'll deal with that a little later as we go along. Whoa, we are not happy. Why are we not happy all of a sudden? Oh, I bet I didn't actually save earlier. Let me comment this out so I get this all fixed. Whoa, yeah. So we need to import funct. I think core funct will do. I hope. And oh yeah, this should have been okay. That's going to have to import context from error stack, and that needs to be bind error. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So that part. Now we bring this out again, and that didn't want a semicolon there. And we're going to have to implement funct on that for server error. And I'm moment just going to say the same thing everywhere. Come on. Stop it. There we go. There was a problem with the server. So that's not great. We'll come back and try to make that better. And I think we impl context for server error. Oops. Right. Okay. Now I think we can return a. So our result here is coming from who knows where. We want, oh yeah, it's coming from IO. So we want result nothing or server error. And oh, that's coming from core result. We actually want to get error stack, context, and result. And then, do I need to say? There we go. Okay. Why are we being grumpy? Main function is not allowed to be async. What is this nonsense? Of course it is. Especially with Tokio main in front of it. Must be something else. Oh, probably because I just don't even have these things done. And I think I can... Yeah, no, I think this is good. So I should be able to turn that into a report. And then attach printable lazy. But why I am not getting, why is this unhappy? No name report in the current scope. Oh, do I have to change? No. So that returns a result type. And we ought to be able to I bet I'm not importing something I need to. Oh, and it says there's a quick fix. Oh, right. I have to do into report. Because into report provides the ability, yep, just what you said, esitsu. Provides the ability to transform errors into reports. And now I can, so I should be able to do this without any attachment. So does that work? So that does, except for it still got the result. And so now, though, if we question mark that, oops. Oh, I have to await somewhere over the rainbow. What? So that's it says implements a future. Why does that gets that? I would have thought, so at this point, it's a result, TCP listener, or report. So if I put a question mark here, I would have expected to have gotten a TCP listener. But it doesn't like the question mark. Couldn't convert the error to error stack report server error. The question mark. Oh. Yeah. So we say server error here, but this is not a server error. And so we need to change the context, I think is what we're supposed to do here. Does that happen here? Dot change context to server error. No. Oh. What I say here? This was a bind error. Is that gonna do the right thing? Well, it stopped yelling. So maybe? Let's find out what happens. I feel like I'm doing a lot of flailing. Oh, hey. Could not even run it once. Oh, no. So this happened. This is a compiler problem. So 58 couldn't. Oh, sure. Because down here, yeah, that's very subtle. This is not returning a server error, so this is not working. Let's, to keep it simple, say map error, server error, map error does take a function, I think. Yeah. So I didn't really want a function. Can I just, is there a map? I guess it is really what I want. Map, because I think I just want to change the error. But I think I do need a function. I don't think I can just say something like server error. What did I call them? IO error. Yeah, because this is like, yeah, expected a function. So I need a closure. Okay. And so that will do the thing. Yes. Now does that all compile? Yeah, I presumably could report and change context. I'm kind of just trying to cut the number of different things happening at once down to a minimum. So now that's running. And aha! So we get, there was a problem with the server at line 54, that's here. Oh, interesting. So the problem's actually here, but it tells us about the line that has the context in it. Caused by address already in use at 53. So I think then we would say we want to attach printable lazy and format bang could not attach to address. So we actually really want this probably to be a named thing. Let's pull this out. Address, server address. Let server address equals bomb to address server address. Boom. So now in theory could not attach to, and now it provides the address. So that alone is an improvement. Before we just had address already in use. Now we got some information saying what's actually happening. And presumably we could also, I think we could improve here by saying that if we can have some kind of match, so it's going to be match self, because self is the server error. Doesn't like that. Oh, that's because we haven't done it yet. Okay, so we have bind error and IO error. Oh, we need server error, bind error. Yeah, and server error. I could probably change those to self. Okay. And now what we want is to print something useful in both those cases. Binding to the server address, and there was an IO problem with the server. We get rid of that. And now we hopefully we get slightly better error information. Aha. So before it just said there was a problem with the server. Now it's saying there was a problem binding, I probably should say to the server address, caused by address already in use, could not attach to this address. Okay. To the server address. that's better. Now I could presumably also add some information here. So here I could say stir slice. And is that going to be, am I going to have a, I feel like I'm about to have a ownership problem. Yeah, lifetime problem. Because this is a pointer into, well, currently a statically allocated piece of memory on the stack of main, and I don't know for sure that this would be available later. I could say that's a string instead. And then here I'm going to have to turn this into a string. That'll work. And then this is grumpy because and actually let's, because that line's getting pretty long. And now I think this will, oh, except that's not, that doesn't seem good. Makes me feel like I didn't get something. So this didn't get picked up here. Really? Oh, that's because it's just, this isn't a format. This is just a string. So I actually need format bang, and then not open paren, and boom, and I'm going to need into, no, that was not the useful thing. What am I going to need? What's the problem? The problem is that this, so we were expecting a string slice and we got a string at a reference. Nothing happened there. Something did happen there. You two are so nice to me. Use the write macro. I don't know, to be totally brutal. Rust write bang macro. Write instead. Accepts a writer, a format string, and a list of arguments. Yeah. So instead of format.write string, it's write bang, FMT, the string, and then any arguments that I need. Gotcha. And do I... Okay, I don't have to have arguments because it's a macro, so we can have a variable number of arguments. So write bang, little w, write bang, Thumt. And now, come on. Oh, stop it. So then close quote, close paren. Done? Ho ho, look at that. Well done. Thank you. Thank you both. I don't know how I get any of this done if people like you are not here helping out. And something doesn't work. It's up at the top. How did an ampersand get in there? That was, oh, I think when I tried doing some autocorrect, I think it tried putting an ampersand somewhere that clearly didn't make any sense. Oops. Yeah, actually, you're probably right about the socket adder, to be honest with you. Having a string fly around is probably not the best plan. So this did work. We now have, instead of just, there was a problem binding the server address, there was a problem binding to the server address, and then we've got that caused by yada, yada, yada. So, if we wanted a socket adder, we would have to either build one directly or parse one from the string. And one of the other ideas that I have downstream is to do something like clap to handle command line arguments, specifically to allow us to specify the port that way. So having the port cooked in probably isn't awesome. I mean, the local host part, 127.0.0.1, yeah, that presumably is going to be that, and baking that in seems entirely reasonable. But the port, you would like to imagine that the port should be more flexible, and it would be nice if that came in as a command line argument. That's going to have to be parsed into a number, presumably, which creates another potential for errors that will have to be handled. So I guess, but we could get into that a little bit here. Actually, let me commit, because I think we've got enough of something that I'm going to at least commit here. Add error stack and handle bind errors. This adds the error stack crate and adds code to handle errors when binding to the server address. Boom. Now let's think about making that a socket address. Oh, and that should be 2, not OT2. So let server address socket oh, yeah. So actually, if I do this the other way around, if I do let server address equal parse socket adder server address, that probably didn't work. Is this an import problem, I suspect? Really? That doesn't seem right. I think do I need to, like, is there a crate I need to Standard.net socket adder. No. So and it says a string should parse to that. What if I make it clear what the type here is? Socket adder. And then I could get rid of the turbofish silliness. Oh, it's string dot server address dot parse. Boom. Yeah. Oop, except it's not. Oh, that's because it returns the result. And so if I do question mark, yes, no. Oh, because that returns a server error, so we're going to have to like deal with that. So I could cheat again. And IO error is the wrong thing to do there, but just, whoa. Oh, and then question mark. Okay, so that at least works. So I don't want, obviously, I don't want it to be IO error, and presumably I want to have to use the report stuff. So I'm going to need to come back here. We got bind error. We also have then adder parse error. And that's going to take us, hold a string. And we're going to need to presumably have a context there. Maybe, do I ever use, I don't know that I ever use this. I'm not sure. This bind error, does this bind error do anything? Or is everything actually in Oh, that's just because adder parse error is not there. Self adder parse error adder string for now. Oh, I didn't like that. Right, bang, foont. There was a problem parsing the server address adder string. Okay. So I don't think that my bind. So hey, Wgaffa, I will catch you up in just a hot sec. I don't think my bind ever really did anything. I don't think this was ever necessary. I think all the action is in server error at the moment. And that, oops, I missed a close curly brace. And why is it saying that's never used? I assume that's what that's saying. Because it is used right there. Well, maybe we have to actually use it down here. So to catch you up, so this is a simple echo server. So an echo server listens at a port, and whatever it comes in, it just turns around and sends back. And last week we wrote the basic, both the echo client server, so they connect to the port, well, the server connects to the port, binds to the port here, and then we use Tokio to generate a thread for every time there's a connection. So this listens for connections on that port. So when a client connects, we spawn a thread which processes that stream, and this literally just reads from whatever the client sent and turns around and sends it right back. So these are, there's nothing interesting here other than you've got to be able to like talk to sockets and handle moving the data around. These in the old days were used sometimes to debug networks, and we got the whole thing working fine last time, but it was full of question marks. There was really no error handling to speak of, and so the purpose of today's exercise for me is I was interested in the error stack crate because I thought it looked interesting as a way of handling errors, and this idea of being able to create reports and attach information to them looked cool. If maybe a little complicated, that was part of the question. So I wanted to try it out. So basically I'm going through the code that was working at the end of last Saturday's session, and adding error stack to it. And we started with the bind address error, because I knew easily how to force that error to happen. Because if I am connected to if I'm running the server in one place and then I try running it somewhere else, I will get that error because you can't have two services bound to the same port. And so we can see that we're getting fairly useful information. Like, there's a problem binding to this address at this location. It was caused by this error at this location, could not attach to this address. So basically had something working, wanted to do something to improve the error handling, decided of the many error handling systems in the world that error stack looked like it was interesting, and I wanted to at least give it a shot. So we're kind of doing that. And I don't know, this is the first time I've ever used error stack. I've never used anyhow or its variants. So I'm in no position to say anything profound about this is better than that. But it looked interesting, so I wanted to give it a shot. So that's how we ended up here. Hopefully that helps. So now we can change this to an actual adder parse error. Adder parse error, and we want to provide the server address. And boy, it didn't like that. Expected a string, so we have to convert that to a string. Okay. So that should now. So let's see if we got to be able to run something. That runs. But if we go back here and we change this to be 6x, then we should fail to parse. There was a problem parsing the server address. Okay. Now we should presumably be able to add some other information here as well. So, oh, I've still got map error there. Yeah, we definitely want to get rid of that. so we want to turn that into a report. Boom. Report. And we're going to want to change, dot. And we can attach lazy, printable lazy. And then we're going to say server error. No, actually we want format, right? What am I doing? Yeah, format. I'm in the wrong place. Format, bang, could not parse address, server address, and that ends that. Okay. And then we want to change the context to be a server error add parse error server address, and then all this stuff goes away. Boom. And that's going to be, needs to be a string. And this really is a little long. So I think doing that and that. Make that a little more readable. Now, this will work. The problem parsing this address here caused by invalid socket address syntax, could not parse this address. Might be a little repetitive. I don't know, maybe I don't need both of these. Maybe I don't actually need the attachments. But I do like this. That's actually useful. And that information was not available up here. Yeah, so I think you're just saying the same thing, Wgaffa, that this really does repeat what's here. And so in this case, maybe I don't need the attachment because everything I need, I'm able to capture in the error and then print it out. So the context is actually doing all the work I need. So really, I probably don't need this attach printable lazy, and I probably don't need this attach printable lazy. And then I think these will leave us, yeah, with a slightly Well, so I guess there's an interesting question. Is it better to have this here and not repeat this up here? Or is it better to have it here and skip it down here? Because I kind of like the caused by and could not parse. I mean, this reads sort of as a sentence to me in a nice way that, well, what was the cause? The cause was this, which was in turn caused by that. Whereas if you've got this, but you don't have anything below, you have caused by, invalid socket address, and then you have to sort of know to come back up here. So I kind of like the attachment. then maybe the thing to do is to not, but it seems silly not to say it here as well. I don't know. Thoughts on this? Peeps? I think I'm going to put them back for now. And if somebody wants to talk me out of it, I am happy to hear the argument. But I do like having it here, and it seems so. Esitsu's comment suggests that I'm storing too much here. Wgaffa, I like that comment. That the error type should have enough information for the user, and the attachments are more about the developers. Okay, so by putting this information in here, I'm kind of doing an end run around why error stack even exists. And I also think I'm probably doing something wrong here. So I don't know. I don't know if I should have a enum server with these different variants, or whether each of those should be in error stack land kind of standalone empty types. So basically like the bind error type that I had and got rid of. And then, but you're still going to need, a type here that's got to be sort of the parent type of all the possible. But maybe you don't, because if you're doing context, if everything's just a context, maybe you don't need a type here. And I think so can I change this to context? Does that work? No. It does not like that. Oh, because it wouldn't know which one it was, and so I have to make it dynamic. And I definitely don't want to go down this road. Yeah, okay. So that was a terrible idea. Run away. Don't do that. So I'm going to go back and think about the idea of having the error type being about information for the user and attachments being information for the developer. So the error type would be, so this is coming from the error type, and this this is going to the user. Sorry, the developer. And if the port was provided on the command line, then being able to parse this would be something you would want to share with the user and ask them to try again. And I think there's a suggest. So I think you could do something like, maybe not. I thought there was a suggest. Let me Google that. Oh, actually, are we in? Oh no, we're there. Here we go. Somewhere there was suggest. I was pretty sure. Or not. Rust error stack suggest. Maybe I'm making that part up. No, there's a suggestion. Oh, you can attach a suggestion. Oh, but it looks like that's not. Is that actually something that is built in? Yeah, maybe this isn't even built in. Let's find out. So we could attach suggestion. Yeah, that was just an example. We're not going to do that. I thought maybe there was something fancy there, but So you were thinking that the error type would focus on the user and the attachments would focus on the developer. Although this example kind of looks the other way around, like the attachment is going to be visible to the user. Let's think about this example that they've got. Oh, and this, because I tried this example earlier, this is actually incorrect. That should just be report, not into report, if you care. So in their example, they have an array of IDs, experiment IDs, and this array of descriptions, which are strings. And these strings all have to be parsed. Well, the string associated with an ID has to be parsed when you run that experiment. So we're going to run experiments 0 and 2. So we're going to parse this string and this string. Parsing this is going to fail as a number. So when we start experiments here, we're going to loop over all of the experiment IDs, and we're going to get the relevant experiment description, and then we're going to parse it. And here we say experiment ID could not be parsed. And that would be what would happen if we did the 30 or the 30 here. And so if we go to parse experiment, that's up here. And we parse the string, turn it into a report, attach this, and change the context to be a parse experiment error. And they do not, so this is perhaps relevant. So their parse experiment error does not hold the string like I was doing. And when they display, they do not say anything about the particular error in their format statement. And they have parse experiment error and experiment error as two separate things. Neither one of them holds any data. And then they put all the detail in the attachment. So I think I haven't done it the way they would do it. So it sounds like the way they would do it is that each of these would be a separate error, and so how do they not have a, so at each level you have to be returning the context that makes sense in that level. And so the thing where I got tied up was I've actually got 3 different levels happening here, and I wanted to combine them into a single thing at this level. When really I probably should have had a context for parsing, a context for binding, and a context for listening. And I did not do that the way they do that here. So they have start experiments, returns an experiment error, and they change to an experiment error here, and parse experiment is an experiment error, and then we just change it to be, so we change it basically from a parse experiment to an experiment error. So anything that we would do in our code, we would ultimately have to change to be a server error, and that would be what would pop out the top. But we could have more low-level things along the way. As long as we end up with the same error at the top. Yeah, okay. So parse experiment error can return a parse experiment, or parse experiment can return a parse experiment error, but we are going to take that and change its context to be a server error at this point. Okay, so I think I didn't do this the way they intended. So let's try to do it the way they intended. And I think that that's what one of the goals is. I think the people that wrote this were tired of writing lots of from implementations and boilerplate like that, and that this was meant to avoid a lot of that. And I think I'm kind of by not doing it right, quote unquote, I think I'm kind of not taking advantage of what it was they were trying to do. So I'm gonna let's give this a shot. So let's actually take this function I'm going to take all of this out and say parse server address, boom. And then there is no parse server address, so we'll have to fin parse server address, adder stir returns socket adder, boom, splop all that in, adder dot, and I can scoot all you guys in, and this is going to return an adder parse error, a result, right? Parse, yeah, it returns a result that's either going to be a socket adder or an adder parse error, and that means that this is going to have to be some stuff. We're going to have to deal with that a little bit. And so we want to have let's come back over here and just steal these again. This is going to be an adder parse error. And we can say invalid socket address to listen to. Doodly doodly doo. Why are we all grumpy? Because this is defined multiple times. Actually, really? Oh, it comes in there. Oh, so I can't use that. Oh, fine. Do I need to import that, though? Maybe I don't. Ah, bingo. That's better. So we're going to return that. Then we're going to figure out. So this context is going to need to be a adder parse error. And this is going to be adder. So we have the fancy information in the attachment. It's not in this thing here. And why are you grumpy? Oh, because I put a semicolon at the end. And parse. Probably doesn't know what type it's parsing into. That blew up the world. What? Oh, go away, go away, go away. why do I not trust this quick fix? That seems like a terrible plan. But it isn't a terrible plan? Oh, the question mark is undoing. I don't actually want the question mark there. That was the problem. Yep. So, and you both beat me to it. I was just slow to read. Yep. Okay, so that returns an adder parse error. And whoa, what's fussing here? This would have the question mark, except, right, so not. And we're going to need to dot change context to server error. Now I'll get rid of that. I just really want a server error, but and then a question mark. No, didn't like that. Change context. Oh, adder needs string. Yeah. So we'll get rid of all this stuff to string. Just make sure that, yeah, okay. So that works, and we just need to change this. Server error is going to need to become just there was a problem with the server and not all this other nonsense. So I'm actually going to rename this yeah, I'll just call it bad server. My goal is to get rid of it. Oh, so the question, does it work without the change context? Do you mean this change context or this change context? I think I need both of them, because I think this is returning an adder parse error, and so I have to change the context so that that's what it returns if there's a problem with the parsing. And this I need because main returns what I'm now calling bad server error, and so I need to change from the adder parse error to bad server error. And it does, one of the things about error stack is it doesn't actually change one to another, it stacks them. So it should say, which I think I messed up by having my bad server error. I think when I do this right, it should say we had a problem with the server which was caused by binding by an adder parse error, and here's the information. So we should see the layers of this led to this, led to this, led to this, and hopefully that will work here. And so I think if we do this and we do the kind of generic server error, top level server error, and then there was an error in the server. Why are you unhappy? Oh, because it doesn't implement debug. I did copy quite enough. Boom. And now I think I can change this to be properly server error. And I can change this context to be just server error. And that part will be good. Oh yeah, this is going to fail. So I'm just going to change this to server error for now. And that needs to map to a server error. Ah! Cannot spell the word server today, apparently. So does this all compile? I think so. Aha. Yeah, so this is more what I was expecting. So I think we never saw anything more than one. And now we'll see like the stack of things. So it says there was an error in the server caused by an invalid socket address to listen to, invalid socket address syntax, could not parse it, blah, blah, blah. And so invalid socket address to listen to is at line 67. And that presumably is coming from this right here. Okay. So we had this, and then we got that we couldn't parse that as an address. Actually, it probably should say as an address. Could not parse. Actually, it says could not parse address. Okay. But I think I like could not parse as a socket address. I think I like that better. Okay. And we could attach something here, but it seems like this is the key moment, and that's this is where we want to have the attachment. Probably attaching something here would probably just repeat that. So the question, where is the invalid syntax bit? So I assume you mean this line here, and that's coming from, where is that coming from? Oh, I think that's coming from parse. I think this is coming from the attempts to parse the socket address right here. And error stack is layering this on top of that. So it's keeping the error that we got from parsing the syntax, but adding our own information on top of it. And this attachment just gives us this information here. Now, I guess you're suggesting that maybe this is redundant, and that's very possibly true. I don't know that that's adding a lot of information. And that's coming from here. And we get that because, see, that's this adder parse error context. So we could, if we wanted to, if we didn't want to have that, we could presumably have this return just a server error and set the context to be just a generic server error. Interesting question. Would it work if you removed your own error and used socket adder error? Maybe. So you're suggesting if we put std net socket adder error doesn't exist. Yeah, so I think it was the thing with the same name. So I think it was adder parse error, and then this would be std net adder parse error. Didn't like that because I bet that doesn't right. Because it would just be what we would be getting. So we don't need to change the context. And then here we'll change the context to become a server error. And that should be okay. So maybe that's a plan. Because then maybe we don't have to make our own thing. Look at that. So we get, instead of getting the two things here, we just get the one. So we say there's an error in the server, invalid socket address syntax, could not parse, blah, blah. And so the attachment allows us to add this additional information, whereas we would have otherwise just gotten this, which doesn't tell us a whole lot, whereas by adding the attachment, we get additional information, but we didn't need to make a new error. We could use the existing error. Yeah. No, I think that actually, I'm 100% in favor of that. I think that is definitely the right thing to do, which means that we should be able to make all of this go away. And now we get to find out where all the bad things that happen as a consequence of that. We're going to have to clean that mess up. And get rid of this. Because all that whole type needs to go away. And then we also want to just import adder parse error. Standard net adder parse error. And does everything else compile still? Yes. Okay. So that I think is definitely an improvement. We'll get rid of all of this. So thumbs up. Actually good nitpick. I have seen both impling error and impling context. And I think I was copy pasting something. And I guess that's the least important one. Because I want to get rid of that. So actually, what if we error? But which error am I impling? error stack, I would assume. Is there an error stack error? No. Which, oh, you're doing standard error. Okay. Did I need that though? I shouldn't, because I don't think I've ever needed that before. But if I do this, it's not happy. Standard error. Import error. Now you happy? Where is that? Where did that import happen though? No, now it's still not happy. It didn't do the use. Weird. Use standard error. Be happy. Yes. Yeah. So errors make more sense, I think. I agree with that. And the naming makes more sense. And then we'll get context from that. So that still compiles. Now that's a bunch of unused variants. Don't care because we'll get rid of them. Okay. So I think that's a win. And so it tells me that I should look for existing error types when reasonable instead of making new ones, which I definitely like that better. Now I'm actually going to commit. We got 20 minutes. We'll finish this up. But I'm actually going to commit because things kind of work at the moment. And I want to try to capture... Well, I don't know. Maybe not. Because we're kind of halfway through converting from the old way to the new way. And I'm not sure that a commit right here would be a ton of help. So maybe we'll just plod along and get rid of the rest of the references to bad server error. So I need to see bad server error. Where is that happening? Oh, it isn't happening anywhere. That's why we were getting the unused thing. So can we actually comment all of you guys out? Do you? Yeah, look at that. Well, that's nifty. Okay. So maybe we will do a commit here. Get rid of that little issue. There we go. And then we probably want to fix this. Make sure that it still works. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I say it still works without actually testing that it really worked, but I think it did. Okay, so so what's the main thing we did here? So we switched from complex server error type to, so one of you used a nice unit struct, that's the word, to unit error structs. So I had overcomplicated things and used a enum type for server error that captured various information that didn't, kind of in a standard error stack universe, need to be there. This eliminates that more complex error type. It also eliminates entirely the bind error type. No, it wasn't the bind error that it eliminated. We'll probably need that still. It was the custom adder parse error struct, replacing it with the std net adder parse error type, which we can use as a context without having to create our own. And that all went away. And that was just a spelling mistake. Oh, and I guess we I also extracted the server address parsing logic into its own function. Which is sort of a lot to say, but whatever. Okay, so I'm going to commit that, and now we ought to be able to turn this into a actually, I'm going to probably make a function for this too, because this has all this noise attached to it. And actually, what do we currently get if we try to bind? Cannot attach. And I think this is just an IO error. So the question is, do I want my own error type there? Or, again, do we just reuse IO error and then let the attachment do the interesting part? And I feel like the attachment is probably sufficient, because address already in use probably tells me whatever I needed to know, and what I really need to add to that is that this was the address that we tried to attach to, and then it didn't work. So maybe I don't need a custom type there. And I can just take whatever type I get from bind, and that'll be what comes back from this function, and then I'll change it to a server error here. So I think that actually makes sense. So let's see, I want to take all of this basically have to define bind address. Bind to address, and that's going to take a socket adder. It's going to return a TCP listener. Oh, it's going to return a result that's either a TCP listener or I think this is going to be an IO error. And then we're going to do all of that stuff. And actually, I should get rid of this change context because that's not supposed to be there anymore. And this is adder. And oh, this needs to be async. It's got a waits in it. And this is adder. Okay. Let's oh, come here. Scoot you guys over. One. Yeah. Oops. Oh, stop it. There we go. Okay. Now, why are we unhappy? Oh, no. I don't know. Why is that unhappy? No method change context. Impl future. I shouldn't have a future here. Oh, I probably need an await because it's async. I need to wait on it to complete. And then I can do that. Okay. Yes, we've been using 1Password for close to a decade, actually. Maybe a decade? Been a long time. We were using it when you had to have like a Dropbox or something to hold all of your accounts or all of your passwords to sync through multiple devices. So I don't remember what our first version was, to be honest with you, but it was a while ago. Because I know in 2014 we definitely had been using it. So we must have started probably in 2013 at the latest. So been a while. Yeah. Yeah. Dropbox sync. The days. So this works now, he says optimistically. Whoa. No, I have a problem. I'm re-importing. Oh. Really? Why do I have two socket headers? I didn't want the second one, I'm pretty sure. Danger of letting the system fill things in for you. There's an error at the server caused by address already in use, could not attach to address. Bingo. That's nice. So, wow. I'd have to go back and root around in my email to find out when we started. I think I'll spare us that exercise, but I am very impressed. We were all on the same page a decade ago, apparently. So go us. That is cool. So yeah, so we didn't have to make a new, again, we didn't have to make a new error type. It was enough to use the IO error type and go with that. So that was nifty. And this does not say anything about what kind of error that we might actually get if there's something more specific than just IO error, but it doesn't look like it. So we'll roll with that. I think we will commit that. Extract bind logic to its own function. Bind logic to its own function, returning IO error if there's a problem binding. Boom. And then we have to worry about this. So right now we're just doing a map error there, and that's clearly not great. Now this is except, and I think that's an IO error. No, it's it's an IO error. Again, which we don't have much in the way of useful information about. So it's just a generic IO error. So here we might want something like dot accept dot await, and then we're going to want dot change context server error, and it didn't like that. So we're getting this gives us a result, and this changes the context. And here we had a result, same kind of thing. Oh, this was a report though, and we don't have a report here. So we need to turn this into a report. Where's that? Yeah. So I have report and attachments on these guys, and I don't have a report or an attachment on either of these. And that comes after the await. So dot report. Now I don't have to have an attachment, and I don't really have an attachment that would be useful here because we don't have any information that would be very helpful unless we wanted to include the address, which we could do, I guess. But I don't know that would that be helpful? I'm not sure how that would be helpful off the top of my head. But then part of the problem is it's not obvious to me how how the listener accept would fail. I don't know enough about the gory details there to know how that would fail for us. So I think we'll just leave it be. And then now this one, we're calling our echo stream, and it could return an error basically because these things could return an error. Now this does seem like a place where a named context would be useful to separate. Oh, we're nearly out of time. Maybe this is a good place to quit, because I feel like so actually let's I've got all these to-dos and I think we've done a bunch of them. So let me actually, so we've, yeah, okay, echo handling. So we've sort of done that, not really, okay. So I think this would be where we would pick up next week. And it would presumably go a lot faster now that I've figured out how this actually works, with your great help. So I think I'm going to commit this. So that was just removing that line, and this is just turning this into the logic that gets a listener. Now I wonder, do I want a function for this as well? Because this is kind of long. Probably. Yeah, so logging's another kind of a flip side. The error handling coin is, and this relates to Wgaffa's comment from a long time ago about what are we aiming at the users and what are we aiming at the developers, and having sort of a reasonable logging system in place would make a lot of sense here, and I haven't dealt with that. So that's, I think there's even up here, yeah, a note that should have logging. So that's going to want to be an upcoming adventure, and I've never used the logging stuff, so I will no doubt flail around and use it wrong and then figure it out. Yeah, so I think actually I kind of like having these helper functions. So I'm gonna make one for this as well. And this is going to be accept listener, listener. Does that need to take any arguments? I don't think it did, but we'll find out when I async fun accept listener. So actually it really should be accept connection. That would make more sense. Accept connection. And it's going to take this listener as an argument. And it's going to return a result that's a actually all we need is the socket part. And a IO, right? We returned it. Oh, come here. IO error. And it's not happy because probably a type thing. Mismatch types. Yeah, so it's currently getting us returning the pair, and we actually just want to return .0, right? Oh no, we'll have to do it's like a map. Which takes the X and Y, and we're going to just return X, but that's a terrible set of names. Oh, I left my, so we'll have to fix that. Yeah, okay. So it's a stream, and so let's see, socket and address, and we'll just return the socket, and actually address should just be underscore boom bop badoo. And that is doing the right thing. And we need an await on this. And this just returns the socket now. So I don't need the comment. Yeah. Now why are we? We didn't send it to the listener. All of you go away. Stop it. Listener. Boom. Except it didn't like that. Why are you grumpy? Value moved here. Is this actually supposed to be a reference? And then this is a reference to that? Yeah. That looks like that works. Do we compile and run? Yes. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So, and I've put this much work into looking into the error handling stuff, teeny weeny bit, which ended up here. I put in 0 on the log handling. If any of you have any thoughts on log libraries, man, please share, because I don't have the foggiest. That is not something I have any experience with, and there are clearly a bunch. I think I'll just go with the simplest one, which I didn't do with the error handling, but I don't feel some compelling need to understand something complicated about logging. So probably trying to go with like one of the simplest logging tools available will be my inclination, but we can see how we want to deal with that. So, okay, we're going to commit this puppy. Oh, it looks like I'm still way indented. Don't need to be indented to the moon. There we go. Is there a way to like say .0 here without creating a closure? I don't know of one. Because that's kind of, if you think of like .0 as a function, it's kind of the function you want. But yeah, that has names. Names are good in this setting, so I'm gonna roll with that. So Fern, I'll have to look into that. I don't know Fern. What's the wonder? What's cool about Fern? So let's, yeah. Just very flexible. Okay. Grab that URL. Stash that somewhere so I don't lose it. Yeah, so I think I've looked at a little bit of this. Oh, wow, yeah. So there's a big long list of loggers. Heaven to Betsy. Oh, and there is actually, so if I bring this over here. So they actually talk about console log, which actually since, oh no, wrong project. This is not ice-repos. So we wouldn't want to use console log there. We would want to use something else. Yeah, I thought about doing map pair.0. But that's where I was like, yeah, but the name is probably kind of nice. Kind of indicates what's happening there. That we're getting a TCP stream out of it. I don't know. I mean, and you know, map pair.0 isn't a lot shorter. You know, this you have to add the parens and the underscore, but over here you'd have to have the .0. I don't know. Not obvious that either one is a lot better or worse than the other. So, I'm going to do this commit and then I'm going to be done. And then I will, so I'll see everybody. That's it for today. Should be back Tuesday morning working on ice-repos from 10 to noon Central Daylight. And then hopefully we'll return Wednesday night to do evolutionary computation stuff, which got missed this last Wednesday because of family things. But hopefully we'll be back at that on Wednesday. So I thank everybody so much for being here. It really is wonderful and I really appreciate it. So let's see, extract, accept connection logic to its own function, extracts the logic for accepting connections to its own function. That didn't really say very much, but whatever. Okay, so I think I'm a happy person and things work. Thank you all very much. I'm going to wrap this up and I will hope to see folks on Tuesday morning. Talk to you later. Ciao.